Hey everybody, welcome to my 100,000 kilometer Victory Vegas review. Now this is a 2007. I bought it brand new in 2008 as a previous year's model, and I've owned it ever since then. I just recently turned 100,000 K on it, and I just want to do a quick review on this bike for you. Now obviously it's not fully stock. You'll see I've added some floorboards, crash bar, windshield, and saddlebags, and put a different seat on it because when I bought it I didn't realize I was going to be more into touring. I thought I was just going to be more into cruising. I enjoyed touring around, taking long trips, so I outfitted it accordingly. So here's a few of the things that I like and do not like about this bike. Now generally speaking, I am very happy with this bike. I love my bike. There's a few little nitpicky things that I would change if I had the opportunity to. So let's get to it. Alright, so one of the things I don't like is the tank size. The tank size is only 17 liters. After 14 liters are gone, you have 3 liters left, you get your fuel light on. When I hit 250 kilometers of easy riding, I am looking for a gas station. It would be nice to have at least another, 3-4 liters in there, a 20 liter or 22 liter tank. Just gives you that extra range where you're not constantly looking for a gas station. Now, having said that, it's a cruiser, not a touring bike, but would have been nice to have a slightly bigger tank on it. One of the worst things about the Victories is they don't make them anymore. They stopped making them back in 2017. They have I believe something out there where it says they're going to make parts for about 10 years and then they're going to stop. As it is, it's tough to find parts for it. I mean, the basic repairable stuff is still there. You can get oil change kits, you can get tires, drive belts, you can, I rebuilt my fuel pump, stuff like that. But they don't make them anymore. So if you buy one, you run that risk where maybe you have to start finding someone who makes aftermarket parts, or making your own, depending on how things go. Nitpicky stuff, the valve train noise. So when you're sitting on it, you can always hear the valve train clicking away in here. That's pretty famous for all Victories. There's nothing wrong with it, it's just valve train noise. And of course, when you're in overdrive, now I do have a 6-speed in this, and the 6-speed, the 6th gear on the highway will whine a little bit. I know my gears are straight cut, and I believe they started to cut them helically in about 08 or 09, which was supposed to reduce a lot of that noise. Again, nothing wrong with it, just a little nitpicky thing. One of the biggest things about this bike is it's a bit cold-hearted, even though it's fuel injected. When I start it up, this isn't a choke lever, this is actually a throttle lever, and I have to kind of pull that back a bit, sort of put it on a high idle while it warms up a touch before I start riding. So it's a touch on the cold-hearted side. Once it's warmed up, no problems, it idles great. Now, mine is an 07, and I believe they changed this in 08 or 09. One of these front turn signals is actually wired backwards, and as you can see, these are not stock. When I wired these up, of course I wired it what I thought was the correct way, and I burned out the ECU module in this thing, which was a $500 fix. And I don't remember if it's the right or left turn signal that's wired backwards, but if you have an 07, one of them is wired backwards. Be very conscious of that, so that when you put a new one on, you wire it the same way. Otherwise, it gets to be pricey. Now, the original seat on this thing is obviously, again, a cruiser, not a tour. It's a bed of nails. You might as well just sit on a hunk of plywood with screws in it. It was god-awful. I spent a pretty good chunk of money on this Mustang seat, and well worth the money. I can go all day in this thing, and I definitely could not do that before. Now, some of you may have watched my fuel pump extraction from my fuel tank and the disaster I turned that into. Now that's not Victory's fault, that was mine. However, to get at the fuel filters are on the fuel pump, which are inside the tank. So the only way to change your fuel filters is to take the tank off, take the fuel pump out, and have it changed that way. So that's a real pain in the ass. Now I believe in '08 they changed things to make it a bit easier, but these ones are inside the tank, which I think is just a touch ridiculous. Now, one other nitpicky thing, I have to put premium fuel in it. Obviously it costs more. It's not the end of the world, but it is pricey. So with the, I think the bikes that came after this, '08 or '09, they changed them. They still put out the same power, but they lowered the compression in it so you could use regular fuel. So could save you a little money if you go that way. Now, being a cruiser, and I have this real skinny front tire on it, which doesn't cause too many problems. The only thing is when you're on the highway and you're getting into the tar snakes, or there's a crack in the road or something, it'll catch this tire, a bit. Now, it's not going to wipe you out or anything like that, but you do notice it. The touring bikes usually have a great big fatter tire on the front, which will help alleviate that problem. Again, that's not Victory's problem. That's my problem because I bought a cruiser and turned it into a touring bike. But just a heads up, if you're going to buy a bike for touring, get something with a fatter front tire on it. Now, what do I like about this bike? Well, I like the way it sounds. It's got a good soul to it. It's overhead cams and 4 valves per cylinder. So she's rated at 85 horsepower and 106 pounds of torque, probably at the crank, not the back wheel. But I know whenever I've needed to punch it, it's got more than enough in reserve for me. Now, obviously I'm not going to beat any sport bikes or anything like that, but this thing's got all the power I need. Now, it is overdriven, so it's got a 6-speed with the overdrive in it. So when I'm touring around, if I'm just lollygagging about enjoying the scenery, I can get like 55 to 57 miles per imperial gallon out of this thing. And that's pretty good. If I'm riding a little harder, I'll get 42 to 45, which is still pretty good. My younger brother has a Goldwing with an 1100cc engine in it, which is quite a bit smaller than this. But because his rev's so much higher, I actually get probably the same or better mileage than he does. So I definitely like the overdrive. Now this one's a little bit controversial. I love the style of this bike. I think it looks wonderful. I know there's a lot of people out there who hate it. To each their own. We all have our taste. I like my bike. I even like the paint job it came with. Now, reliability. So I've got over 100,000 kilometers on this bike. It has been pretty reliable. Now, I did have an electrical problem that took me a little while to figure out. I replaced the stator, which in hindsight was actually still good. And the battery, it was the original battery, so after 11 years, the battery probably needed to be replaced. It turned out to be the rectifier and one of the connectors on it. So the only real issue I've had with it was the regulator rectifier went on it. Now, things are going to go at some point. That happened probably around, 85,000 K or so. But other than that, that is the only real issue I have had with this thing. This bike has been pretty bulletproof, so I really can't complain. Now, I'm not super tall, so this bike has a real low seat on it. So when I'm at a stoplight, I can sit at a stoplight with my feet flat on the ground. I'm not all stretched out trying to keep the bike from falling over. So for me, it's good. This is my first big boy bike, so having a low seat kind of helped me get used to it. Now, the suspension on it, I think it's somewhere around 4 inches in the back of travel and 4.5 or 5 up front. I've never hit anything where I've really bottomed it out, but again, this is a highway bike, so not taking it off-road, but offers me, enough that I haven't, jarred my spine or anything like that. It handles relatively well. I mean, it's a big cruiser. It's heavy. This thing probably weighs 700 pounds with all the stuff I've got on it. But it handles well enough for me. I'm not going to be running a slalom with it or anything like that. Now, one of the key things for me, because this is a modern bike with all the newfangled technology in it, it's low maintenance. I don't have to adjust valves. I don't have to do much with this thing. I change oil in it. I change tires on it. I check my brakes. I lube my cables up every once in a while. Check the tension of my belt. and I ride it. I put gas in it and I ride it. This thing does not really give me a whole lot of downtime. So basically, in short, would I recommend you buy a Victory? Yeah, why not? You know, there's quite a few of them floating around. Now, they don't make them anymore, but they're pretty reliable. You'll get quite a few good years of service out of it. And even if you do have some issues, you still can get probably the majority of what you need. Now, if you blow your engine, well, you're probably not going to throw a new engine in it. But I like this bike. I am very happy with this bike. Would I buy another one? Tough to say because they don't make them anymore. But hopefully this one's going to give me another 100,000 kilometers. So basically, good bike. Victory built a good bike. Polaris built a good bike. They are now building Indians, so hopefully they'll keep the reliability there. But big thumbs up, Victory. Very happy.